Okay, so this morning I got up and I was wanting. I wasn't really planning on doing a video really that much, I don't think, but I was wanting to look for. A video like on YouTube that talked about the Old Testament hell, and more specifically that there is no mention of eternal punishment or hell in the Old Testament. That's what I was really looking for. But in the process of looking for that, I came across this video of a guy that was giving a question and answer a presentation. The name of the video is it's from OTBM. That's the acronym, I guess. Online Video Training, and the title is The Old Testament and Eternal Hell. And so anyway, it was about, again, it was a question and answer type thing where he's up on a stage and he has an audience and it has a board behind him where you can post scriptures and whatnot. And so someone stands up and asks the question, what is the I can't remember exactly how it was posed. What's the best example of hell in the Old Testament or something? And the guy goes, well, I'll answer that for you. And he then he goes on to say that the best description I can think of, the best example of scripture in the Old Testament that talks about hell is Isaiah 66, 23 through 24 or something like that. Or 22 through 24. And so I'm going to go ahead and read that, Isaiah 66, 22 through 24. This is his reference in terms of a proof of hell being in the Old Testament and it being a place of eternal punishment. Okay, and then I'm going to back up because I'm not going to just read those without setting a stage for those last three passages. Okay. So here's Isaiah 66, 22 through 24. 22. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. 23. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. 24. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men they have transgressed against me, the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. Okay, so that's actually verse 24 is the real one there, and supposedly in reference to hell and eternal torment. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that there is no hell mentioned there. There is no reference to eternal punishment there. Okay. But yet this is his best example of proof that it's referring to eternal punishment in hell. Okay. And it's like a 42-minute video. This is only like 10 minutes into the video. I've seen the video before. In fact, I might have done a video on it myself, as a rebuttal or whatever against it. It's 42 minutes long. And he's gonna I guess continue in and on hell in the Old Testament. So maybe later on I'll do another video. But right now I just want to do the first 10 minutes about Isaiah 66, 24. But I want to back up and get get the theme here of what's actually going on, add some more things to this, because you can't just pick this out and say, well, this is hell, and because like I said, it doesn't even say hell, and this is eternal torment, and it doesn't say eternal torment. Well, how can you say that it's hell and eternal torment when it doesn't even say it? Okay, of course, I guess you could. I mean, naturally, you can, you can read something into something, and but again, in terms of this is the best example. This is the best example in the Old Testament of there being a place of eternal punishment and hell. I don't think so. Anyway, I mean, I'm just, and I don't have anything personal against the guy. He's full of crap. And that's putting it mildly. Okay, so I'm gonna start in verse 5 of the same chapter here, and it's in reference to Israel in the end times, and it's titled, the title of the chapter is Judgment and Hope. Okay, that's the title of the heading of the chapter. So, starting in verse 5, it says, and this is Isaiah saying, and it's in reference to, it's not only in reference to Israel, but it's in reference to all nations and all peoples, as we'll see as this goes on here. In verse 5 it says, "Hear the word of the Lord, ye that tremble at his word, your brethren that hated you, that cast you out for my name's sake, said, Let the Lord be glorified, but he shall appear to your joy, and they shall be ashamed." Verse 6, "A voice of noise from the city, a voice from the temple, a voice of the Lord that rendereth recompense to his enemies." 7, "Before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child." And again, that's speaking of Israel. That's where Jesus came out of. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she delivered a man-child. 8. "Who hath heard such a thing?" Question. "Who hath seen such things?" Question. "Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travaileth, she brought forth her child." 9. "Shall I bring to the birth, and not cause to bring forth? Saith the Lord, shall I cause to bring forth, and shut the womb, saith God." Verse 10, "Rejoice ye with Jerusalem, and be glad with her. All ye that love her, rejoice for joy with her, all ye that mourn for her." Verse 11, "That ye may suck, and be satisfied with the breasts of her consolations, that ye may milk out, and be delighted with the abundance of her glory." Again, speaking of Christ coming out of that nation. Verse 12, "For thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream." Now we have the Gentiles. It's not all about Israel. It's about everyone. I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then shall ye suck, ye shall be borne upon her sides, and be dangled upon her knees. 13, "As one whom his mother comforted, so will I comfort you, and ye shall be comforted in Jerusalem. 14. And when you see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like an herb, and the land of the Lord shall be known towards his servants, and the indignation towards his enemies. Indignation towards his enemies. Okay? Well, that sounds kind of, that sounds severe, indignation towards his enemies. But what did Jesus say about enemies? What he said, to love your enemies. Now, God tells us to love our enemies. Surely he's going to love his, right? That's only, even a little child can understand that. If Jesus tells us to love our enemies, surely he'll love his. That's only right and just and fair. Verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire. Okay, there's the fire again. Fire represents purification, purging, cleansing, correction. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger and fury. Okay, now that sounds severe too, doesn't it? Anger and fury. Well, especially when you hear it from mainstream Christianity, because the anger and fury from God is going to be that which is eternal punishment. But a parent, let's say a parent is chastising and correcting a child with anger, and maybe the child did something really bad that it shouldn't have done, and the parent is very angry and furious. Now, the parent is not going to burn the child with fire or eternally torment it. It just means it's angry with the child, okay? But not in an extreme case, like as in burning it with fire or whatever, tormenting it forever. Render his anger with fury, and to rebuke with flames of fire. Again, the fire is a metaphor for purifying and cleansing and correcting. That's what the fire in the Bible means. It's not a literal fire we think of. And his rebuke with flames of fire. 16. And by fire, for by fire, for by fire and by his sword. Oh, there's a sword. There's a sword like in Revelation, where Jesus is coming on a white horse with a sharp two-edged sword proceeding out of his mouth. Okay, and the church world makes that out to be some kind of a sword where he's gonna slash people in two and cut their heads off, and it's all metaphor. It's all symbolic. The sword represents the Word of God. So with verse 16 again, for by fire, cleansing, purifying, corrective fire, and by his sword, the Word of God, will the Lord plead with all flesh. That's why Jesus said, one of the things Jesus said was that all flesh, or everyone shall be salted with fire. Okay? For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh. All flesh. Jesus said everyone's going to be salted with fire. Will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord, that's all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many, not a few. That's what the church system teaches too, is that it's just going to be a few. No, all are going to be slain by the sword. All are going to be purified by the fire. That's what the scriptures are saying here. Okay, now you have to kind of understand what the words mean, because the Bible is a book of symbology and figures of speech and idioms and metaphors, and in other words, it's not a real. It doesn't come right out and say what it says. You have to read into it. You have to, and it's designed for a person to have to study it and study the words to find out actually what they mean. Like the word torment, and they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. The word torment means touchstone. It means to test something. So you have to study this book. You can't just read it like you read any other kind of book. Okay, let's see. And the slain of the Lord shall be many. Again, many. The word many means the vast majority, or really all, really. That's I'm not going to try to explain that. 17. Then they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves, there you go with the purify, but it's really not them. It's really not them that's purifying themselves. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens, behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination, and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. Okay? And purify themselves in the gardens, behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh. Okay, and that's a sin. That's an abomination. That's a bad. It's not. You're not supposed to. Well, I mean, back then you couldn't, because it was an unclean animal. But eating swine's flesh, that was considered an abomination. And the mouse, you're not supposed to eat a mouse, shall be consumed together. Well, again, consumed by who and what? Well, by God and through the fire. Because God is a consuming fire, and shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. 18. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come, and I will gather all nations and tongues. All nations and tongues. Oh, you mean the Muslim nations and the Hindu nations and the atheist nations and all nations. That I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. Now let's stop there a minute and kind of picture that. That kind of reminds me of when every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess, and after they've all bowed and confessed, Jesus is going to say, well, off to hell with you. That makes about as much sense as this here, where it says, and they shall come and see my glory. If they're going to come and just see the glory of God, and then after they've seen it, God's going to say, okay, well, off to hell with you, now that you've seen my glory. That doesn't make a lot of sense. That sounds like something some man would do, some psychopath would do. Hey, come and look at all my glory here, people. Okay, now you've seen it. Now, okay, now off to eternal torment with you. That doesn't make sense unless you're a wicked-hearted psychopath. Now, that would make perfect sense to somebody like that. 19. And I will get a sign among them. I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations of Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the isles afar off, that have not heard my fame. Okay? Neither have seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. Because again, it's all encompassing. for all nations, all people. 20. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of all nations, upon horses and in chariots and in litters and among mules and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel unto the house of the Lord. 21. And I will also take of them for the priests and for Levites, saith the Lord. 22. Now these are the last three verses this guy was given here. So all this stuff is leading up. All these previous verses I just gave are leading up to this last three verses over here. Speaking of the fire, backing up a little bit here, the fire and and the Lord will plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many, and there'll be all the references to all men and all nations. And okay, so now we're at the last three verses here. 22. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. 23. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. All flesh. All flesh. It doesn't say. Now, and you would think it would be emphatic. It would be emphasized that it was. Well, now we're not talking about all people. We're just talking about the ones that chose God and ones that just, No, it just says all flesh. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me. Okay? 24. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, and their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring to all flesh. Okay? Now that seems to sound like, let me read it again. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men. Well, what is the carcasses of men? Carcasses of men, or anything, animals or anything. It's the body, it's the dead, it's a shell. It's just a shell of a person. It's just like when you see someone in a coffin or something. It's just the shell of the person. It's not them. They're gone. So the carcass is just a bunch of bones and skin. It's the flesh. It's the old flesh. It's the old man. Because once everyone comes to the Lord, they're changed. They're changed from the incorruptible. They're changed from the corruptible to the incorruptible. That's where you have the eternity. That's where you have the eternal and eternity and everlasting is that word, incorruptible and immortal. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. Again, it's the dead. It's the ones that have died. They're not. That's their former self. They're no longer that anymore. The carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die. Again, a worm, that's a metaphor for cleansing, just as fire is a metaphor for cleansing. A worm that's a maggot, and it cleanses flesh. That's why all is left is a carcass, just the bones. There's not even any skin left. The maggots eat it all up. Because that's what maggots do. They cleanse, they purify, they purge, just like fire. It's a metaphor. It's not a literal worm that eats at people of all throughout eternity. That's not what it's talking about. their worm dieth not, shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched. Again, fire and maggot, fire and worm are both together, because they're both figures of speech and metaphors about cleansing and purification. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring to all flesh. You know, and to abhor that, to abhor the old man, to look at that old man and go, man, that was bad. I was really a mess in that state, in that fleshly, carnal state. So anyway, that's again, you can't just take out two scriptures and say, well, see right here it says this is the best example of hell in the Old Testament, when it doesn't even say hell and it doesn't say anything about eternal punishment or torment. So how in the hell can you use that as the best example, or even any kind of example? Now this guy, I'm sure he thinks, and I don't hate the guy or anything. It's just that he's ignorant, and he's been taught this under the umbrella of organized Christianity, and that's all he knows. And so he's just trying to explain, and he's trying to come across as some great theologian or something, some great scholar or something. And and to someone that really doesn't know what it's saying here, it would sound intelligent. It would sound, well, this guy's really smart. This guy's he's a real brilliant man. But anyway, I for whatever reason, I'm not gonna go into why I think I come across this, but so I'm going to probably watch the rest of the video. I've seen it before, and see what he has to say next, and probably comment on it, because anyway, so that's pretty much it.